Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you may already know that this is the third video in a new series I've begun on my channel. And I've titled that series, Walking the Lines of Origins to Deeper Strata, with the subtitle of Peeling Back the Symbolic Palimpsest. And what I mean by that title is that I am trying to move my associations, the associations esoteric, and when I say esoteric, I mean Kabbalistic and astrological. So the Kabbalistic and astrological associations back towards an earlier and what I think of as a perhaps more pristine version. I can't say that we're going to an origin or the original because that doesn't really exist, at least not as far as I can tell. But I do want to move back, and in my moving backwards, I'm not trying to make anybody else wrong. I'm not trying to say, for example, the Golden Dawn or anybody who follows the Golden Dawn's associations or the system that was, I'll say it, reconstructed by the Golden Dawn, that is wrong, or it is meaningless, or that it is bad. I'm not saying any of that. But what I am saying is, for me, I want to move back. I want to try to uncover what has accrued over the faces of each of the cards over the centuries as people have overlaid their own interpretations and their own ideas to the Tarot. Does that make sense? And so, this is the third video. I have an introduction video to the entire series which explains what I am doing and why I'm doing it, and I'll put a card up here if you want to go back and watch that, and I highly recommend it if you have not seen that before. Yes? If you have been following along, you will know that in the video before this, number 2, I covered the first 7 cards of the Major Arcana, from the Magician to the Chariot. Yes, and I start with the Magician, right? And in that video, I listed the criteria I used for the Major Arcana in making my associations. For the astrology, for the Hebrew letters, that's all explained in that second video, which is the first video on the Major Arcana. And there will be 3 videos. There will be a third video on the Major Arcana coming soon. So, this time we're going to focus on cards 8 through 14, which means we're going to be covering justice to temperance. And yes, 8 is justice. For all of us who are fond of the Smith-Waite deck, or even the Thoth deck, we should also remember that the Golden Dawn did several things when they reinvented the system, right? One of them was to place the number 0 on the Fool, and to place that card before the Magician, which we already talked about in the previous video. The other thing that they did was they switched, after they did that, so that the cards would match better what they saw as more linear astrology, they switched justice and strength, right? You know that, probably. So, originally, justice is 8 and strength is 11. Smith-Waite the Smith-Waite only, well, not only, but the Smith-Waite and people who have followed the Smith-Waite moved those 2 cards so that strength is 8 and justice is 11. Yes? So, I'm going back to pre-Golden Dawn orders. And if you love Thoth, you're already familiar with this. So, what we're going to do today is work with those, and in that order. And for me, I think there's a certain, satisfaction to having this series start with justice and ending with temperance. Now, starting with balance perhaps and then ending with harmony. That's satisfying to me. And with the astrology that we're working with in the system that I am rediscovering, we'll also be starting with Cancer and ending with Scorpio, 2 water signs. And that's also very satisfying to me. Yes? A younger water sign to a more mature water sign. I like that. So, we'll get into the cards in just a moment. But before we get there, let me say thank you. Thank you for doing all those things that you do. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up button. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Your actions help other people find us, help YouTube know to share the channel more broadly, and other people find us and join our community. Also, for those of you who comment in the comments section, I am deeply grateful for you and to you, and I really appreciate your ideas, your comments, your feedback, all of that. So friends, are you ready? Here we go. We're starting today with justice. And let me pull up the justice card for myself. Here we go. There will be the cards up here for you to look at as well. And I will have the Tarot de Marseille on one side, and I will have the Smith-Waite on the other. And yes, the numbering is off. We just talked about that. We're following the Tarot de Marseille, the pre-Golden Dawn ordering of the cards. So, yes, justice. Both very similar, don't you think? I mean, the art style is different, but we got the major symbols very well in line. And for me, justice is associated, as I hinted at, with the zodiacal sign Cancer. And that is because, for me, the justice card is associated with the letter Chet. Now, that it looks kind of like a fence or a gate, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But that Hebrew letter is assigned to the astrological sign of Cancer in almost all versions of the Sepher Yetzirah. Yes? So that's what we're going with. And Cancer in Hebrew astrology is associated with actually very similar traits to our Western, if you want to call it that, astrology: sensitivity, emotional depth, also caring for others, yeah, are all Cancerian traits in Hebrew astrology, in the positive. In the negative, it's associated with susceptibility to sense impressions, yeah, being maybe overwhelmed sensually, our senses being overwhelmed, emotional instability, also excessive desire can be negative Cancerian attributes. Now you might be thinking, well, what does that have to do with justice? Well, I think we also have that idea of empathy that comes from emotional depth and caring for others, right? So it gives justice a more socially just quality. Can you see that? As Cancer in Hebrew astrology, we have other attributes. It is the month of duality and introspection. Yeah, it's a month of holding and binding. Think of Cancer, the claws holding and binding as well. Now the crab grips tightly. It's also the idea of clinging to the divine, clinging to God, or holding fast to spiritual principles in times of chaos. And that can be a justice-like quality, right? Holding on to spiritual principles, a very just action. And if you think of justice not so much as a legalistic or something that happens in courts, but being just, yeah, the just people. Does that make sense? Those are some qualities that seem to lend themselves to what we were just talking about. There's also the idea of an enclosed or an inner chamber to Cancer in Hebrew astrology. Yeah, it's the inner chamber of the soul, perhaps. A place of spiritual retreat and also of protection. It's a safe space. So, if we are in a just society, there are the expectations that we will be safe. So there's a safe space here. Yeah. There's also the idea of the sheepfold, or a secure resting place where the flock, representing God's people, yeah, is protected. So those Cancerian ideas of protecting home, protecting family are expanded here, I think. Also the idea of removing resentment. Yes? An opportunity to remove inner resentment and negativity is here with Cancer, and also with justice. So instead of being punitive, it's reconciliatory. Yes? Now, the letter Het in Hebrew is, like I said, it's shaped like a fence or a gate, and that is the symbol. Yeah, it is a symbol for fences or gates and protecting life from the outside, right? From the destructive forces of chaos in the outside world. It's also a doorway to divine light, and it's the doorway for divine light to enter. Think of the light of the divine entering and spreading peace and justice around the world. It's a letter for new beginnings. It's a letter for life. It's the letter for protection and for sacred boundaries. Now think of the fence, the protective fence, the gate, sacred boundary. Yeah? It's also the symbol of a marriage canopy. You know, in a Jewish wedding, there's a canopy above the married couple or the couple to be married, which is interesting. Now, we also remember that the Hebrew letters are also numbers. So, Het is the number 8. Reference, the 8 of the, which side will it be on? Probably the Tarot de Marseille will be on that side, I think. I might be wrong. But the number 8, which is what? It's transcendence. Yeah? 7 in Hebrew numerology is completion. 7 days of the week, 7 years make up one period. Yeah, and 7 sets of 7 years, which total 49, is one complete period, with the 50th year of Jubilee where everything is refreshed or restart. 8s are the it's transcendence after that completion. The end of and the transcendence beyond a natural cycle, which is interesting for justice, I think. Now, if we want to associate runes from the Elder Futhark, which, if you know me, you know I like to do, we get the rune of Wunjo, which kind of looks like a little flag. Yeah? And Wunjo implies joy. It implies balance. Okay, here we go. Balance for the justice scales, right? It's attraction. It's also security. That echoes the Hebrew letter, right? And bonds. Yeah, the bond between people, a bond of justice, a just bond, and luck, which is interesting. So yeah, that's some of the symbology, the esoterica, the astrology associated for me now with justice. And can you see or hear? Can you hear some resonance between what you're already thinking about justice and what I described? Can you see how maybe this shifts justice into a more socially just, a more non-punitive but more just way of approaching the card? I don't know if I'm making sense. If I'm making sense, please let me know in the comments below. If I'm not making sense, please let me know in the comments below. I'm sure there is a much better way for me to explain myself. But now, we're going to move on to the Hermit. Now, let me move on to the Hermit. Hermit cards, very similar, yes? Guy holding the light, with a staff, very, very hermit-like. I haven't mentioned this yet, but the tarot deck, the RWS style tarot deck that I'm using is the one created by Conrad Stein. And he has his decks up on Make Playing Cards, and I'll put a link in the description box below. I love his decks. I love the crackle backs. I love the way he did this. He's got many versions of the RWS, but this is one of my favorites. Okay, so Hermit. Because of the reassociation, the Hermit is now don't freak out, Leo. Which is, okay, personally that's very satisfying because my sun sign is Leo and my birth number is 9. So, there you go. So yes, my birth card is the Hermit, number 9, and my sun sign is Leo, so this makes me very happy. Leo in the Hebrew astrology is very similar to Western European astrology. Yes, it's leadership, it's strength and power, which makes you think, yeah, so it should be the strength card. Okay, I get it. But we're putting it here now, yeah, at least with me. And that's the positive attributes. Those are the positive attributes of Leo. The negative attributes, for example, if this card were reversed, would be things like pride, ambition, and irrational self-assurance. Like, I am the best. I can lean on myself. I don't care whatever the hell is happening to me. I am the best. This is irrational self-assurance, right? I don't need anybody. When we think of strength in Hebrew astrology, when we think of the Hermit, Leo in Hebrew astrology, we still think of things like strength, but we also think of kinship. Yes? Royalty, power, but also authority and glory. And I think those last two are very hermit-like to me. Yeah? The glory of the self-enlightened one of the hermit. Yeah? The authority of the one who has done the work of introspection. All of the Hebrew astrology seems to have a dual nature to it, and the dual nature here with the Hermit is judgment and mercy, which is interesting. The element of fire is associated with Leo in Hebrew astrology as well, and this is a fire that can be a consuming fire. Yeah? For example, the fire of judgment and destruction, or it can be a fire that shines forth. Think of the light of love and protection. Think of the burning bush in the Torah. Yes, I almost said the Old Testament, but we're trying to de-Christianize our reading a little bit here, even though they're very Christian out there, very Christian cards. We got to say that, but we're adding some older esoterica onto this system that we are rediscovering. It's also the conquest over evil. Yeah. Ancient descriptions of Leo often show the lion standing above a serpent, above Hydra, the constellation for Hydra, and Leo is above it. And that shows the evil, perhaps, of the serpent being dominated by the powerful and mighty and the one with authority, Leo. About to crush its head, yes? It's the ultimate victory of good over evil. Which, if you look at this Hermit card, if we can really spiritualize that, we can perhaps get that sense of the good dominating evil, right? The spiritual light shining forth. But if it is reversed and Leo goes into its negative drive, instead of this beautiful hermit with this inner light shining forth, what we get is the fire of destruction, right? The lantern gets crushed and the fire burns everything. Does that make sense? The Hebrew letter associated now in this reordering is the Hebrew letter of Teth, which kind of looks like a U a little bit with a little extra on top, which is the Hebrew letter associated with the symbols for basket, but also for womb, for new life, and for, remember I said the serpent of Hydra being evil, being crushed by the lion? Well, we also get a serpent here as one of the symbols of the letter Tet. We also get the idea of the spinning wheel, yeah? The possibility of good or evil is here in Tet. Concealed potentials are here. And because the letter Tet is the number 9, it's a stand-in for the number 9, we also get the idea of truth, which also reminds me a lot of the hermit, right? The seeker of, the finder of, the displayer of truth. Now, if we go to the rune that might be associated with it, we have the rune Hagalaz, which kind of looks like an H with a downward pointing middle bar. And this rune is the rune for the destructive, the unpredictable force, chaos even, which would be maybe the card in reverse, yes? It's the forces of nature and the unconscious. And then we think of the hermit being the seeker, maybe even of the unconscious, yeah? Finding the light within. Also, Hagalaz is finding perfect inner harmony, which again points to me very strongly to the Hermit card. Okay, friends, let's move on to the Wheel of Fortune, or just Fortune in some decks. Now, the Wheel of Fortune is associated with the Hebrew letter Yod, and the Hebrew letter Yod is associated in most Sepher Yetzirah with Virgo. So now Virgo is here. And in some ways, I think that makes more sense than the Hermit, personally. So, what are some of the positive traits for Virgo in Hebrew astrology? We have things like modesty, purity, introspection, and perfectionism. Now, you might be saying to me, yeah, that's all Hermit stuff. Okay, well, let's keep going. Negative traits would be small-mindedness. So if the card were reversed, small-mindedness, compulsiveness, worry, and a lack of self-confidence. Okay, that makes sense, yes? But let's go a little bit deeper and look at Virgo and its associations for the Hebrew astrology. So, not the Wheel of Fortune, Virgo. It's the time of harvest. Yes? And harvest, we can start getting that feel of cycles, yeah? It's a time of introspection and repentance. Virgo is also for sustenance and bread. Sustenance and provision, yeah? The bread of life. And when I think of bread, and I think of the Wheel of Fortune, I remember that our ancient way of grinding wheat and other grains was with a millstone. And those millstones are round and turn, and reminds me of the Wheel of Life. I mean, not the Wheel of Life, the Wheel of Fortune. Does that make sense? Also, we get the idea of purity and separation. Yeah? Purity, innocence, and spiritual separation. Separating the wheat from the chaff, perhaps, even. Now, the letter Yod itself, this is where I get more stronger feelings for the Wheel of Fortune. Hebrew letter Yod, for all of us who study Tarot, most of us heard of the Yod being a shape of fire-like or energy that pours down from cards like the Tower card, the Sun card, and the Moon card, right? The little Yods. You've heard of that, maybe? If you haven't, some people talk about that. Some people describe those bits of fire raining down as Yods. But the letter Yod in Hebrew is a symbol for the hand. Yes? Maybe the hand of fate. Now we get back to the Wheel of Fortune, right? It's the creative hand. It's the divine spark. It's humility as well. It's also the point of creation. And if we think of the point of the axle of the wheel, the point of creation that spreads out to create this wheel, ever-turning wheel of time, wheel of cycles, wheel of the universe, always turned by the hand of fate. Are you getting some resonances now with the Wheel of Fortune? Now, the rune associated would be Naudiz, which looks like a line with a little bar across the center of it, pointing down to from upper left down to lower right a little bit. Yeah, and so this is the rune for desire. It's the rune for need. It's the rune for innovation. And you can think of need being the mother of innovation and invention, right? So those are qualities of Naudiz as well. It's disruption and the desire to overcome that disruption. So there are some needing to keep going, right? The need to keep moving the wheel. The desire, when we're down at the bottom with need, we want to come up and we want to do whatever we need to do, to invent whatever we need to invent for us to recover, to recuperate, to overcome. Does that make sense? Okay, friends, we are moving on to card number 11, which is strength, or force in some decks. And yes, remember, in the older traditions, this was card 8, but in the Smith-Waite deck, it is card 11, but we're going with the original numbering. And for me, strength is not Leo, but it is associated with the Hebrew letter Kaf. Now, this is where, because we've put justice and strength back into what I would consider their original positions, and we've reorganized the letters and the cards so that the first card is now Aleph with the magician, right? Card 2 is Beth with the high priestess. And I talked about all of that in the previous video. Because of all of that reworking, now strength is Kaf, and Kaf is associated with the planet, the sun. So, for all of you who really need strength card to be Leo, we've still got the strength card being the sun. And where is the sun domiciled? The sun is domiciled in, yes, Leo. So we still have that link if you really need it. Yeah? And the sun is also Tiphereth in the Tree of Light, which is on the central pillar, and it connects to all of the other Sephirah on the Tree of Life. There's a bar that connects all of them to Tiphereth. There's not a bar. There are many bars that connect all of the Sephirah to Tiphereth. Each one has a connection, which is wonderful. And it places the sun perhaps here in the solar plexus, maybe. What does the sun mean for Hebrew astrology? The sun is the reliable rising and setting planet. Yes? It never goes into retrograde. It never goes backwards. It's seen as something that is faithful. It has faithful service to humanity at God's bidding. God makes the sun rise in the east and set in the west every day for eternity. That's the idea, right? So there's that idea of righteousness, which I think fits strength fairly nicely. Righteousness and wisdom. The sun symbolizes righteousness and the path to the just, who shine more and more unto the perfect day. So in this reordering, now strength is maybe perfected justice, enduring justice, right? It's the light of the divine shining through an integrated human. Does that make sense? There's a powerful and beautiful, consistent instrument of God's providence and glory shining through this card, through with the sun. Yeah? Also power and energy, very strength-like qualities. The Hebrew letter again is kaf, I should say, which kind of looks like this, or maybe from your perspective like this. And it's a symbol for the ancient. It's also the bend and curve from the shape of the palm, like this, for me at least. And that is a symbol for power and capacity, strength, right? Also, the ability to tame and subdue. And we think of the woman here taming the lion, right? Subduing the lion. Also, the need to bend ourselves in modesty, to accept others. And at least in the Smith-Waite card, yeah, the woman is bent over the lion. She could be the kaf there. To understand the lion, to be able to influence and tame or to friendly the lion, yes? And there's also the potential to act, the potential to act here in the Hebrew letter kaf. Now, the rune associated with this is Isaz, which is a straight-up line, a vertical line. And Isaz is the rune for ice. You might be thinking, well, that's weird, right? But it's also rest. Yeah, ice doesn't move very quickly, so it's rest. It's origins. It's also willpower. Aha, more strength ideas, right? Willpower, concentration. Also stand still, waiting, pausing. And sometimes our strength and our ability to integrate asks a pause from us as well. Does that make sense? So it can also be a physical or psychological barrier, this Isaz, but that barrier can be transmuted into a bridge, I think, here in this strength card. Do you sense the satisfaction that I sense now with the sun being associated with strength? I think this is wonderful. Okay, the next card. If you know me, you know that this is my card. It's not my birth card. It's not my card of the year. But when I think of myself in Tarot, I think of myself as this guy, the Hanged Man. Now, with our reassociations, the Hanged Man is now Libra. Right? Okay? Just go with me here. And to tell you the truth, when I was young, Libra was not my favorite sign of the zodiac for personal reasons, and now things have changed. But I love the what is this guy? The Hanged Man. And I've come to appreciate Libra in a new way. As I've studied astrology instead of the person that I studied who was self-identified as a Libra, I've gained more appreciation for Libra people and their qualities. Now, in Hebrew astrology, the positive traits of Libra are as follows: harmonious relationships, balance, and openness. That makes sense for Libra, right? If the card is in reverse, we get things like difficulty in decision making. Makes sense, very Libra-like problem. And lack of focus. That sounds a little Gemini to me, but it's also an air sign, right? The air signs are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So, Libra in reverse might have some Gemini qualities to it, a little less mature version of the air signs. In Hebrew astrology, Libra is divine judgment. As far as I was able... Now remember, this is always with the caveat, this is as far as I've been able to understand in my research so far. Yes? Okay. So, all human deeds, both good and bad, are metaphorically weighed in a scale to determine the fate of individuals for the coming year. That is the idea of Libra. And the verdict is sealed on Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement for the Jewish people. And it is the Libra month. Yom Kippur falls in the Hebrew month for Libra. Remembering that the Hebrew month for Libra shifts with the lunar calendar, so just remember that. It's justice and righteousness, yes, God's perfect justice and the eternal moral law is here. All actions are measured against divine standards, and by that fact, all come up short. So, that's part of the Hanged Man's tradition, a little bit at least, right? Because all human deeds are insufficient. We are imperfect. We cannot do anything perfectly. Yeah? Human good deeds are often found wanting in the light when weighed against the scales with God's perfection and God's goodness. The need for divine grace or a means of atonement to balance the scales of justice is also part of the zodiacal sign of Libra for Hebrew astrology. Now remember, we're looking at very antique, if not ancient, ways of approaching astrology. We're not looking at modern psychospiritual astrology now. I'm peeling back the symbolic palimpsest as much as I can, at least at this time, and this is what we're getting. That doesn't mean that humans are bad, just that we aren't God. We aren't the divine. We're not Gaia. We're not the great father. We're not the great mother. We're not any of that. We are imperfect. And that's fine. But there's a balance and an atonement for our imperfections that benefits us as spiritual beings. Yes? So, balance and harmony. The pursuit of equilibrium between the spiritual and the physical realms. Remembering that they are inseparable. Right? They are one in a way. Just different dimensions of the one. The aspiration is to connect the material world with the higher spiritual realms. Remembering again, there is no high or low or far or near in spiritual terms. It's all oneness, right? In the spiritual realm. And our ability to more closely integrate our experience here in the physical realm with our understanding of the spiritual realm benefits us. And that reminds me a lot of the more modern version of the Hanged Man. Yes, that the fragrance of potential enlightenment that wafts out of this card for me is echoed in that. Now we have some interesting associations with the Hebrew letter Lamed, which this these cards are associated with, yeah? Lamed, it's an ox goad. It's a stick, yeah? But it's also a teaching staff. It's also the action of learning and teaching, which I like for this card. It's aspiration. The Hanged Man aspires, yes? It's our heart striving upward, and the Hanged Man maybe has been placed in this position, or has placed himself or herself or themselves in this position, and has the possibility, the opportunity to strive upward. Now, the rune for this card would therefore be Graa, which kind of looks like, I don't know if this will make sense to you, it looks like this. And that is the rune for harvest. It's reward. But it's also harmony and abundance and cycles of life. Now, these might seem more like qualities more aligned with the Wheel of Fortune, but what if these are aligned with the Hanged Man? Yeah? What if the Hanged Man now has potential for rewards, has the potential to have a harvest from the work he, she, they are doing hanging here? Yeah? Maybe they are perceiving a different cycle of life now. Does that make sense? Okay, now we come to another one of my favorite cards in the deck, but which many people hate, right? The Death card. These are very different. Most of the cards most of the cards. Which cards? Ones we looked at. Justice, the Hermit, the Wheel of Fortune, and Strength, and also the Hanged Man. The images in both of these cards were very similar, right? Here we get two very different images. And remember that in most Tarot de Marseille cards, this card, which I think is going to be here, is unnamed. It's the unnamed 13th card. And here we have, I don't know if you see this, but we have a skeleton holding a scythe, right? The scythe of death, or the scythe harvesting the souls of the dead. In the Smith-Waite card, we've got a skeleton in armor riding a horse. Very different ideas. Carrying the white rose flag, and we've got the sun rising in the background. A very complex card. But we do have some similarities in both of the cards, in that in both of these cards on the ground we have people in different states. We have a king, we have a non-king person in one side and in the other. Yeah, we have different levels of society somewhat represented in both of these cards on the ground, being harvested. What is death for me? For me, death is associated with the Hebrew letter mem. And therefore, it is associated with the element of water. Because mem is one of the three mother letters, right? The three mother letters are Aleph, Mem, and Shin. And these three mother letters are associated with elements of air, water, and fire. So here we are at water. And water and death seem very compatible to me. Do they resonate for you? What is water for the Hebrew mystics? Water is both chaos and life-sustaining order. Now, it's both. There's a duality in a lot of Hebrew mysticism. It's the primordial chaos. Remember, before the creation of all, there was a primordial chaos which is conceptualized as a watery thing. Yeah? And then the waters of the heavens were separated from the waters of the earth. So, the primordial chaos is water. The formless, the undifferentiated, the state before the separation of the heavens and the earth. It's all water. So before life sprang forth, there was the chaos, and that kind of resonates well for the death card, I think. The ideas of life and sustenance are here in water. God's ability to refresh and sustain. Remember, the Hebrew peoples were in very desert, arid climates when they were structuring their religion, when they were ordering their religion, when they were receiving their religion from the divine and structuring it and organizing it. So that idea of life and sustenance being a watery thing is important. God's ability to refresh, I said that, his people. And divine wisdom is compared to water that covers the earth. There's also the idea of purity and cleansing, very, very death-like qualities, if you can think about it that way. Ritual immersions, for example. We die to our old selves as we are reborn. Maybe a Christian framework, but pre-Christian baptisms existed, yes? And it was that idea of dying to the old self and being reborn and being cleansed and purified of death. It's the mikvah, a pool of water for cleansing. It's central to Jewish purification practices, rites. And it signifies a fresh start and spiritual cleansing, which comes with death of the old, right? And the transformation, transmutation that we think of when we think of the death cards. Emotion and reflection. Yeah, emotions and intuition are watery things. And inner reflection, we were a reflecting pool, right? Water. Now the letter mem kind of looks like what? It kind of looks like a box, maybe. But think of it as water again, and maybe the womb. The womb of life, which is it. We pass through death, through the waters of life, into the womb for a new rebirth. Mem is also the letter for the Torah, and it's the hidden and revealed knowledge. Somewhat death-like qualities, don't you think? Now, the rune associated with this would be Iwaz, which looks like a line with two half arrows on the ends, yeah? And Iwaz is the rune for the yew tree, not the me tree, but the yew tree, Y-E-W, yew tree, which bows and other bendy weapons were made from. It's the rune for wisdom and endurance and protection and initiation. All of those transformative things that we can sometimes relate to the death card, right? Death as an initiation, as a transformation, as rebirth. Right? As also a harvesting of wisdom. Does that make sense? So I really, really like the association of mem with death. And now we have temperance. And temperance is a beautiful card. They're very similar, right? You can almost see in the Noble Tarot that I'm using the implication of the angel or the human's 1 foot being on land and 1 foot being in the sea, kind of, in the water, kind of. You can see it. You don't see the feet, but you can imagine that there might be a foot down there in the water. Do you see that? Now, this might freak you out a little bit, so stay with me here. Temperance, because of everything, is now associated with the letter Nun, the Hebrew letter Nun, which is associated in almost all of the Sepher Yetzirah with the, what is it called? The astrological sign of Scorpio. So Scorpio is here, and you might be thinking, what the heck? How can temperance be Scorpio? Scorpio, bad, 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 tuh, tuh, tuh. Now just be quiet. My rising sign is Scorpio, so I like this. But what are the traits? What are the Hebrew traits of Scorpio? The positive traits. Yes, there are positive traits of Scorpio. Emotional sensitivity, believe it or not. Deep understanding. And spiritual intuition. Maybe somewhat temperance-like, yes? Now, in reverse, we get some of the negative stuff, right? Destructive tendencies are there, excessive desire, and susceptibility to evil influences are possible with that. But again, that's the card reversed. Upright, something very different. So, what does Scorpio mean for older Hebrew astrology? Well, it would still have the scorpion. Yeah, we have the scorpion's sting and transformation. The challenging process of bringing subconscious thoughts or unresolved issues, those painful things, up into our conscious awareness. And that is the sting of the scorpion. Yeah? The sting or intensity of emotional pain that can result from doing that is considered necessary for a deep personal growth and spiritual rebirth. So remember, temperance after death, after the rebirth, yeah? It's that mixing of the ends, right? The pain and the healing. And the healing, we often associate temperance with healing, right? I'm pointing down to the cards in front of me, but you see them up here. We often associate temperance with healing. It's the month of, let me read this here, Cheshvan. And that my pronunciation, I know, is horrible for that. Which is associated with the Great Flood. Think of the waters pouring from the two vessels, yes? It's the time of Noah. And this is the month of the flood, but that flood also reminds us of the rainbow, which was the promise to Noah that we're not going to do this again, right? And if we think of that rainbow, I also think of the water pouring between the two vessels. Can you feel that? Yeah. We have the idea of duality of, again, and this is the duality of coldness and passion. One vessel being cold, one vessel being hot. Yeah, pouring between both of them. So, on one side, apathy, frostiness towards holiness, yeah, and cool, calculating approaches to life. But also, on the other end, intense passion, Scorpio, right? And powerful inner strength. And those two mingling, melding, transforming this bitterness and coldness into warmth and sweetness. Total temperance, if you ask me, yeah? Whereas justice balances the two, so there's as much good as there is bad, temperance brings them together and creates the new thing. It's in the Harris Crowley deck, it's the art card, right? It's the alchemy card. Overcoming evil and protection is here as well with Scorpio. The power to overcome humanity's evil ancient enemy, right? The snake in the tree. It's also the main house. What does that mean? So, there were two temples. They were both destroyed, right? This is the third temple. A future time of ultimate redemption and eternal dwelling in the divine presence is associated with Scorpio and now associated with temperance and we can kind of feel that, yeah, being here in the divine presence. So, just a moment, please. The Hebrew letter nun is a serpent, a fish, yeah? But it's also the faithful one. It's also carrying knowledge of old world over the water of destruction to the new world. It's think Noah's Ark, yeah? It's faith. It's the falling and rising of things. It's continuity and humility. Those feel like temperate things, right? And the rune, Perthro, looks like a cup on the side, is decisions, mystery, prophecy. It's also uncertainty and scarcity. But it's also occult skills, yes? And initiation. Fertility is possible here, partnerships, and female knowledge. Female knowledge. There's a feminine quality, I think, to the temperance angel, right? Both, whether we see an angel as being male or female, there's a temperance, of a feminine quality to that, maybe a non-binary, non-gendered quality. But do you see how temperance can echo or can absorb some of these ideas that we just described through both Scorpio and the Hebrew letter Nun and the rune Perthro? Does that make sense? Can you feel an arc or a trajectory of individuation, of growth, of spiritual growth, of transformation that flows through these 7 cards? I can. If you can, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Yeah? And if you can't, let me know in the comments below. Maybe if you have questions, if you have your own ideas, I'd love to hear from you. And friends, thank you. Thank you for joining me on this. I will have one more video about the Major Arcana. Cards will be from number 15, which is the devil, through the end of the world, which is with the world card, right? So I'll go through those in the next video. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Thank you for participating. I would like to remind you that it's always good to review these videos to refresh yourself, because I necessarily want to do these in segments, right? I'm not going to go through the entire deck in one shot. So, review and let me know what you think. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.